Welcome back to another episode of the It's Too Easy podcast with the Lenny Bros, ready for week 10 of college football. We got only about a month left, and then bowl games are around the corner. So, going to be some intriguing matchups. Jake, where are we starting?
Yeah, so gonna dumb down the slate a little bit this week. Obviously, the last 2 weeks just had a ton of incredible games, so wanted to be all over it and kind of paid the price a little bit, but look to try and get back on track in this one. Gonna start with Tulane and UTSA. Um, Found that I think Tulane was only 3.5 or 4.5 point favorites in that game on the road here. And I really like the way they've looked as a team so far this season. They do find ways to win. So I'm going to buy them down to 2.5 and take Tulane on the road here. I know UTSA has been much better and has actually gotten some NIL money in. So they're not the worst program. And they've been on pretty good teams so far this season. But I just think Tulane has been much more solid and they've been finding ways to win games no matter what, even if they're down. So even if they go down in this game, this actually could be a great game to live bet if they do go down early. But I do like Tulane minus 2.5 here on the road.
Yeah, I was just thinking that same thing. The live bet option is going to be good. I think Texas San Antonio is going to find a win, or a lead at some point during the game. In which case you'll be able to get Tulane even money if they're only getting about 4 points right now. I do believe it's McCown's son, Luke, that's the QB at UTSA. If I'm not mistaken, I know he and Kurt Warner's son have both been playing at some smaller schools and programs. But I do think that Tulane's a much better football team. Their defense has been solid. And then Retzlaff coming over from a dominant BYU program last year. We've talked on him this season, and he's getting it done 6-1. It hasn't always been pretty, but they're finding ways to get wins. And I think that they'll come away with another here, get to 7-1.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State obviously dropped now 4 game or four of the last five or something like that. Um, yeah, it's been rough with their backup quarterback. This is going to be no different. This one's in Ohio State. Ohio State's 20.5 point favorites. I'm going to buy it down to 19.5. I could see this being like a 31-3 game, where Ohio State just ends up dominating their rivals in this one. Penn State just it feels like they've lost a lot of their moxie after that loss against Oregon. It's just been pretty far downhill. And Ohio State's defense has been incredible. So I do think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring, but I see Ohio State covering the 19.5 point line.
I'm going to take it at under 45 points in this game. I think that Penn State will struggle to put up 14. And Penn State's defense isn't a bunch of slouches, and Ohio State's offense hasn't been off the charts. So I think 31-14, even at that, or somewhere in that range, 31-10, and you're still going to get an under. So I'm interested to see how the game plays out. I'm going to take it right at the 45-point mark.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Vandy in Texas. Definitely one of my favorite games this week. 9 ranked versus 20, I believe. Texas has looked a lot better the last couple weeks, even though they have been struggling and struggled last week against Mississippi State. The offense definitely found some moxie in the second half of that Mississippi State game. And they're at home in this one, where they also just beat Oklahoma a few weeks back. So I'm going to stick with Texas on the money line here. I was thinking of just taking it minus 2.5, seeing if I can get a little bit better numbers there. And I do kind of like it there, but I'll just stick with Texas on the money line. Vandy obviously has been incredible this season. I just think that they're due for a loss here, and I just don't see them being able. If Arch is playing well, I just don't see them being able to keep up with Texas. Texas's defense actually has been pretty good. I won't say they've been outstanding just because of the games they've lost. They haven't looked all that great. But Arch does have tendencies to throw interceptions. So if that does happen in this game, Vandy could very well end up winning this game. But with them being at home, I think Arch is a little bit more comfortable, and the entire team is just more comfortable playing at home, based on what we saw in that Oklahoma game. So I'll stick with Texas on the money line.
Yeah, similar to this one, I kind of feel like Vandy should win the game based off of what we have seen. But at Texas, they've been a lot better at home, especially on the defensive end of the side of the games. And so I'm going to take an under 52 play here. I think that even if you get a 27-24 higher scoring, I'd imagine, kind of game out of Vanderbilt at Texas, that still should go under 52. It feels like a game that the Texas is going to find a way to win at home, probably pounding the rock and playing defense. Yeah, Arch finally looked good in the fourth quarter and overtime, but it took him being down, I think, 21 when the pressure was off to start heating up. But hey, maybe he can keep that roll and get some confidence out of it and start slinging the rock against Vanderbilt, who has been surprising some teams up to 7-1. They're looking really good, but it's going to be potentially a different story going on the road. So I'll stick with an under here.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Miami and SMU. SMU lost a really tough game last week to Wake Forest. I was not expecting Wake Forest's defense to be that good, but hey, that's the SEC for you. I believe they're in the SEC. I think so. Maybe
ACC.
the ACC. But yeah, either way, Wake Forest's defense looked really good. I was really shocked that SMU wasn't able to score. So hats off to them on winning on that game-winning field goal. Then you got Miami on the flip side, lost that game to Louisville a couple weeks back. And I think that they're going to struggle in this game. I think it's going to stay close, but I'm going to stick with SMU plus 14.5. I think the line right now is 12.5. And I think that's just a little bit too much for this Miami team. They do have random weeks where they just play incredible, but typically that's at home. So with SMU being at home in this game, I feel like buying them up to 14.5 should be pretty solid. And they're going to look for a bounce back week after beating Clemson 2 weeks ago and then losing to Wake Forest last week. It just seems like a pretty inconsistent team, but I do think that they'll be able to keep themselves in this game. And Miami hasn't really been one of those teams that puts up 40, 50 points in a game. So I think that SMU should be able to cover that line.
Yeah, this will be intriguing. Take Kevin Jennings over on passing because if anything they get behind, he'll have to keep slinging it. Mark Fletcher is a dog on the ground game for Miami, so they should be able to run the ball effectively. But even last week, Miami struggled with UCLA. I think the line was 20 points, and they were down 7-0 with a minute before half and tied it right before half. And then I think they won 35-7 and covered or something along those lines. But they've just started slow, and they really haven't looked all that considering they were ranked 2 a couple of weeks ago. So maybe they bounce back strong here. I wouldn't be super surprised, but with it being at SMU, they play a lot better at home, especially on the offensive side of the football. I think they should be able to put up some points and cover 14.5.
Yeah, right on. Then we go to Rutgers and Illinois. After watching that Oregon game against Rutgers, I don't have a whole lot of faith in that team. And then I saw Illinois at home, and they were only like 11.5-point favorites. We watched Illinois win an overtime game against SC, or maybe not quite overtime, win on a field goal before overtime against SC. But yeah, I was shocked at only 11.5 points. I figured it'd be closer to 17. So I'm going to buy Illinois down to 9.5 here at home against Rutgers. I think that they're probably going to end up winning by 20 to 30 points. So yeah, I'm just going to ride Illinois there at 9.5.
Yeah, this is another one. I like that as well. I'm taking Luke Altmaier. Take it to the books. -10, I'll take him at. Hate the guy, but Rutgers is even worse, so they should get it done. If they don't cover 10, I'm never betting on Luke again in my whole life.
Fair. Then we got Arizona State and Iowa State. Probably one of my favorite games on the week on the slate this week. Arizona State's 7.5-point dogs on the road here against Iowa State. Iowa State has looked pretty good so far this season. Rocco Becht has been good, and then Arizona State's defense has just been on and off so far this season. I'm hoping that they have a really good game here and make this a really tough game. I'm going to buy up to 9.5 from 7.5. I'm sure I'll still get a good value there, maybe like -150 or 145. So I'm going to stick with Arizona State plus 9.5. I think just for the moxie and the mojo of this team, they're going to have to keep it within 10 points and give themselves a chance in this game. Just kind of going off what the rest of the season is going to look like. They've lost a couple tough games, so I'm going to stick with Arizona plus 9.5. I love Dillingham. I do still love that program even without Scattaboo, but I do also think it really depends on the health of their offense. If Levitt's not playing well, then it's a really tough team to watch, and that usually translates right into the defense if Levitt isn't playing. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, but I'm going to stick with Arizona State plus 9.5.
Yeah, interesting game. I also don't know if Jordan Tyson's playing. He was out last game for Arizona State, which we didn't know going into the week either.
Yeah.
So another struggle of giving out picks 5-6 days early. But with Jordan Tyson or Malik Brown, they've been pretty effective with Levitt being able to use his legs. That should be the case against Iowa State. Obviously, we saw Bear Bachmeyer and some others use their legs to cook and get wins against an Iowa State team that's been solid, but they just haven't been as good as the couple years past. And so I do like buying Arizona State up to plus 10 and taking it there under the assumption that Jordan Tyson will be playing. They should be able to move the football effectively and get some points on the board.
Yeah, right on. Then game that I really don't have too much to talk about, but a line that I love. We got Indiana minus 19 and a half here on the road against Maryland. Maryland has been a lot better at home, but Indiana is an absolute wagon this season. I expect that they're probably going to put up 35 in the first half, and Maryland's going to be way too far behind to catch up in this game. And their defense that doesn't let up. Obviously, saw Oregon's loss against them, and that's really changed my outlook on Oregon in general. But Indiana's an absolute wagon. Number two team in the country for a reason this year. Um, Kurt Signetti's been incredible there. Got a massive extension, like 8 years, 80 million. Absolutely deserved it. He's been a rock and coaching for that squad. And Mendoza is now, I think, a front runner to win Heisman, and rightfully so. The kid's been absolutely balling. Receivers been balling. Running game's been solid. Lions are awesome. So I just don't see a way that that Indiana doesn't cover 19 and a half in this game. I think this is going to be a blowout.
Yeah, we're gonna have to run the tape back on the preseason college football expectations for Heisman because Fernando's name was thrown out there. I believe it was 135 to 1 odds.
Oh,
I
sheesh.
have to check the film. We'll go back and look at it. Indiana's a great team. Maryland is not. Maryland's offense, I expect to have less than 14 points this week. I would be shocked if they went over that. Indiana's got a solid defense. Maryland doesn't do anything extraordinarily well. Indiana should be able to put up 34 points and cover the 19. So I like that pick this week as well.
Right on. Then we move on to Georgia and Florida. I believe Georgia's 8.5 point road favorites here in this game, which is pretty interesting to me. Florida has a lot of tough games. I think they have the second toughest schedule in all of
So
college
tough,
football.
yeah.
So it's just been a really tough road for Florida and Lagway. He's been making a lot of mistakes, so it's just been pretty much all based on how well he plays. And I think this is going to be a really tough defense for him to go against. I think Georgia started to get it together over the last few weeks. It's definitely not the same defense that we've seen in the past, though. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. But I'll buy Georgia down to 6.5, maybe 5.5, because they have been winning a couple games by 6. So yeah, maybe I'll buy Georgia down to 5.5 and take them on the road here. They're definitely going to want to keep themselves in that SEC picture, and I think that they'll have a better shot at covering that than Florida covering 8.5. So stick with Georgia minus 6.5.
Yeah, the Swamp's a tough place to play, so I'm gonna take it even further down and take it at Georgia -4. Their defense has still not been good this year, but they should be able to come away with a win. It's a big one for them. They need a big win here, and Florida's kind of in a search for who's going to be the next coach, and if the offense is even rolling with the running game kind of being stagnant, and Lagway's had a lot of turnovers, which I think in part is just due to everything else going on in the program right now. So Georgia should come away with a win. They should cover, but I'll take it safe and buy it down to 4.
Yep, right on. We move on. We got Texas Tech and Kansas State. Kansas State's getting a lot of love with the Lions here being at home and having that nice win last week. But I love Texas Tech as a team. Still don't know who their starting quarterback is at the moment, so that is a bit of a question mark. But it doesn't matter because they've been able to find ways to win. So I'm going to take them -2.5 here on the road at Kansas State. I think this could be a little bit of a trap, and Kansas State might end up pulling out a win in this one, just a random win. But Texas Tech is definitely the better program. It's where all the money is, so I do expect that they'll end up with a win. I'll probably take a money line instead of -2.5. But if you're feeling a little bit greedier and want to get a little bit better line, definitely take a -2.5 for Texas Tech.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. We were on it last week. Thought that they were going to lose. I didn't think that they just decide to switch quarterbacks,
In
randomly.
the third or fourth quarter or whatever it
Yeah, you've
was.
had you've had Morton there for 4 years now, something like that, and he's been leading the program all season. And Hammond's gone in here and there, and Morton didn't even touch the field in the last game. They just had Hammond going the whole time, and he looked
That's
horrible.
right.
I think their offense had under like 11 or something like that. It was bad. Don't know what was up with the change there. I expect Morton to come back. They should bounce back, get a win. Uh, I expect him to win big, but I'm going to play Kansas State +10 at home. Just because Avery Johnson and them, we talked about it last week, had them going in, covering 4 against Kansas, and they won by 25. And so I feel like going on the road, getting a big win is going to get some confidence back. And I believe that this one would put them back at 5-4, kind of getting ready for that bowl eligibility. I think this is a big one to come away with. I don't think they will, so maybe covering 10 will happen.
Yeah, right on. Last few on the slate, we got South Carolina and Ole Miss. Ole Miss has just been in a lot of close ball games, and so has South Carolina. This SEC conference has delivered a lot of fun games so far this season. I expect this to be no different. I think Lenore Sellers is probably going to be the most NFL ready quarterback to come out of this draft next season. And I think that this is going to be a big decider of kind of what scouts are looking at and wanting to see kind of where he's going to end up in the NFL. But I'm going to take South Carolina plus 14.5. I think they're 12.5 point dogs right now. I don't have the most trust, but they do have a lot of really explosive plays at very random points in the game. And I think just one or two of those will keep them in this game. So I'll stick with them plus 14.5 here on the road at Ole Miss. But I do think Ole Miss will wind up getting the win.
This is a weird one. I feel like for the first time all year, I'm not going to take the South Carolina points. And I think for the first time all year, I'll take Ole Miss's points. But 14's a lot, so I'll probably just no play this one. I like Lenore Sellers. I like South Carolina, but their offense has been really bad this year. And their defense has been very good sometimes and very not good other times. Ole Miss has been pretty steady on the offensive side, especially since Chambliss took over. They haven't been turning over the ball as much. He's been using his legs effectively. So my lean would be on Ole Miss to find a way to cover, but I'm not going to touch it.
Yep, right on. Then we got Georgia Tech and NC State. Georgia Tech's kind of weaseled its way into the top 10. I believe they're still undefeated at 8-0. Incredible team to watch so far this season, and they've got another potential win here against NC State. The line's only at 3.5, I believe, maybe 4.5.
4.5.
But I'm going to take Georgia Tech minus 2.5 in this game on the road here. They've been a really fun team to watch, and I just don't think that NC State is going to be able to quite hang in there with them. Their defense, that Georgia Tech defense, is actually really good. So I think as long as they're able to run the rock on the offensive side of the ball, they should be able to get a lead early and kind of hang on to it in this game. So I'll stick with Georgia Tech minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm sure we got some fellas going to the game, so go Wolfpack. I am going to buy NC State to +7. I just feel like Georgia Tech's so due for a loss, and I'm rooting for them to keep winning. I like that team. I like the program. We've talked about it all year. Love Haynes, love Jamal, and there's some dogs, but it feels like a weird one going into Carter Finley, where NC State's I think at 4-4, nothing special, but it is a low line, so I'm gonna buy it to 7 and take the pack to get a cover, potentially a big win at home for their program.
Right on. Last three on the slate, we got Oklahoma and Tennessee. Oklahoma has just been really bad the last couple weeks and pretty much fell off a cliff after that material injury. And obviously, we talked about this before the podcast. He hasn't really been the same quarterback since. And I just don't think they have a whole lot of backup options there at the quarterback position. Tennessee's at home in this game. There's going to be 110,000 people in the crowd rearing ready to go in this game. Tennessee does score a lot, and I don't know how well Oklahoma's defense is going to be able to handle it. Their defense has been pretty solid so far this year, so hopefully they'll be able to keep themselves in this game, but I'm going to stick with Tennessee on the money line here.
Yep, I got the same play as you. I think Tennessee's going to come away with a win. The two losses that they had were both pretty solid games against Alabama and Georgia. Georgia went to overtime. They choked. The one against Alabama, threw a pick six right before half rather than kicking the field goal. Ended at the inch line and lost by 17, but it should have been a lot closer. I don't think Oklahoma is nearly as good of a program as what we've seen out of Alabama on the rise so far, and Georgia when they played them earlier this year in an offensive shootout. So I think they'll get it done. Like you mentioned, 110,000 fans. It's going to be bright orange in that place, and yeah, I mean, I think John Mateer was the best pocket passing quarterback that we had in college football this season until he had the hand surgery. And I think he's been probably the worst quarterback that I've seen in college football since having the hand surgery. So I can't take him to get a win on the road as much as I love him. He looked even worse than Tua, and that's saying something last week. So I got Tennessee to get a win at home.
Yeah, fair enough. Last couple, SC and Nebraska, probably the other game on the slate that I'm looking forward to the most. I don't know what it is. I just feel like Nebraska is criminally overrated. They have still lost a couple times this season, and although they're better, I don't see them as the better team here against SC. Now, granted, SC just played a really tough Notre Dame team and made quite a few mistakes, and I think a lot of it was kind of due to the play calling and situational circumstances. So I'm thinking that SC is going to be able to kind of fix some of those mistakes. I hope their defense comes out with some some mojo, and hopefully they'll be able to hold Nebraska because I don't think Nebraska's offense is all that special. And on the flip side, SC's offense is special, and the athletes that are there in LA are definitely going to be a whole lot better than the athletes on the Nebraska defensive end. So I just see SC being able to cover a touchdown in this one pretty easily. I believe they're 8.5 point favorites, maybe 7.5 point favorites on the road here. I'm going to buy it down to 6.5. I see SC likely winning this game by like 17. Um, but you never know with Lincoln Riley. I mean, all it takes is one really poor play call, and things can really shift in an SC game, as we've seen so far this season. I do think talent-wise, they're surely a lot better than Nebraska, so hopefully they'll cover that 6.5.
I'm torn between buying USC to 4 and Nebraska to 11. Um, I don't know who's playing for USC. You mentioned Notre Dame. And in that game, they were without both of their running back 1 and running back 2, Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders. And I assume that both will be back this week, but I haven't actually seen any updates on it. Obviously, Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon were back, which is great for the receiving end. And Jaden Maiev has been solid. I do think Nebraska's defense is decent, so I could see it around the 27, 24, 28, 24 range in this game where they do keep it kind of close just because USC's defense, per usual, has been kind of shaky. It feels like a game they could end up losing, and then Lincoln Riley is finally going to get fired too. So I'll probably buy it up to Nebraska at 11 and take them to cover it being at home.
Yeah, fair enough. Figure you guys might want to check this out. Got a little cat fight going on
Little
right
squishes.
now. But the last game on the slate, we got Cincinnati and Utah. Utah's 9.5 point favorites here at home against the Cincinnati team. I'm just gonna stick with Cincinnati plus 13.5. I was telling you before the podcast, I've just doubted that team way too much this season, and I'm done doing it. Granted, Utah's probably gonna end up winning this game just like they blew out Colorado. I think they're up like 40-3 at halftime last week, or 40-0. It was something ridiculous, and ended up winning like 53-3 or something along those lines. So Utah may end up winning in a blowout, but Cincinnati as a team has been a lot better than I expected. So I'm gonna give them a little bit of love this week and take them plus 13.5 here in Utah.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Don't know if I have a play necessarily. I'd probably take Utah down to -7. I think they'll score um, at least 30 being at home. Cincinnati's had a good offense, but I think that Brendan Sorsby's turnover prone, and Utah usually has a good defense. So they should come away with a win, I'd imagine, by at least 6 or 7. Don't know if they'll crush them, but I would lean on that more so than, um, yeah, being at home. I feel like Utah will probably crush them. So I'll buy it down to 7. I think that's a good play.
Yeah, fair enough. But that's going to wrap it up for what I got on my end. Do you have anything else on your end?
Nope, nothing else. I think that's going to do it for week 10 of college football. So we'll be back with some NBA soon, hopefully. I know the season started. We've got a few teams that are looking hot to start the year, like the Chicago Bulls, as we all expected. And then you got your Thunder that are now 5-0. Yeah, it's been an interesting season to get started. No LeBron. Luka got hurt. Austin Reeves is dropping 50 a night. We had a 50 piece out of Lauri Markkanen. I think the Warriors did exactly what they needed to have a chance to run the West and have a chance to win it all this year, as did the Rockets getting KD. So it'll be interesting to see how those play out. Chance for Fire and Nico have already started, as I think they're now 1-3 or 1-4. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. The Bucks have looked great with Giannis so far. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun season. Obviously, a lot of injuries, guys that are going to be out for a lot of the year, like your Tatum's and your Halliburtons and Kyrie still. Wembanyama's been incredible. I think they're undefeated even without De'Aaron Fox, so the Spurs could be something to mess with. So yeah, the West is definitely tough. Someone from the West should win it all. But yeah, we'll dive into that another time, kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of what kind of playoff matchups we'll be looking for. I do expect the Blazers to make the playoffs this year, probably through the play-in, not the playoffs. Through the play-in, they'll find a way, and I think that they're criminally underrated and now having a lot going on with Chauncey Billups in the gambling situation. But I think they'll get a good coach in there and sneak their way in, led by one of my favorite players of all time, in Drew Holiday, who's been great for him. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll break that down another time. And until then, we'll catch you guys later.
Peace.